The low hum of the courtroom air conditioner filled the room, blending with the quiet shuffle of papers and the occasional scratch of a pen against a legal pad. The polished wooden benches creaked as reporters leaned forward, adjusting their recording devices and notepads. The air smelled faintly of old leather and disinfectant, a stark contrast to the tension thickening with each passing second. Travis Kelce sat at the defendant's table, his broad shoulders slightly hunched as he adjusted his tie. He wore a tailored dark gray suit that fit his athletic frame perfectly, but there was no mistaking the unease beneath his composed exterior. His hands rested on the smooth mahogany surface, fingers lightly tapping a controlled rhythm. His face was calm, stone-like, but beneath that stoicism, a quiet storm brewed. This wasn't a place he belonged. On a football field? Absolutely. In a packed stadium with the roar of thousands of fans behind him? That was his element. But here, surrounded by cold walls and cold stairs, he was out of place. The case wasn't even supposed to involve him directly. A charitable foundation he had supported for years had been accused of financial mismanagement, and because Travis had donated millions to the cause, his name was now front and center in the headlines. The media had twisted the story into something ugly, NFL star involved in financial scandal. They made it sound like he had masterminded the whole thing when, in reality, he had trusted the wrong people. But public perception didn't care about the truth. And neither, it seemed, did Judge Howard Gates. Judge Gates sat high above the courtroom on his leather-backed chair. His thin lips curled in a subtle sneer. His sharp eyes scanned the room before landing on Travis with a cold, assessing gaze. The judge adjusted his glasses, his movements slow and deliberate. "Mr. Kelce," Judge Gates began, his tone dripping with condescension, "do you even understand the seriousness of these charges?" Travis's jaw tightened. He didn't respond. His attorney leaned slightly toward him, but Travis shook his head ever so slightly. He wanted to handle this himself. Judge Gates's mouth twitched at the corners. "Or maybe," he continued, "you think that just because you're an NFL star, the rules don't apply to you." A ripple passed through the courtroom. Reporters exchanged glances, their pens moving rapidly across their notepads. The tension sharpened, cutting through the air like glass. Travis's eyes remained steady on the judge. His breathing was measured, controlled. "With all due respect, Your Honor," Travis said calmly, his voice low but clear, "I'm not asking for special treatment." Judge Gates leaned back slightly, tapping a finger against the edge of his desk. "No?" he said, his voice sharpening. "Because from where I'm sitting, this entire situation reeks of entitlement." Travis's gaze didn't waver. He could feel the heat of the cameras on him, the flash of phones from the gallery. His heart beat steadily beneath his chest, but his mind remained razor-sharp. He had been in high-stakes situations before. This was just a different kind of playing field. The judge's eyes narrowed. "Let me be clear," he said. "Fame does not excuse negligence. If you think for 1 second that your reputation or your fan base is going to protect you in this courtroom, you are gravely mistaken." Travis's fingers curled slightly against the table. His jaw twitched, but he remained still. "And frankly," Judge Gates added, "I don't care how many Super Bowl rings you have. In here, you're just another citizen under the law." Another ripple passed through the room. Travis's attorney looked visibly tense now, his hands resting stiffly on the table. The judge's gaze sharpened. "So, Mr. Kelce, let's cut through the noise. Are you admitting that you failed to properly oversee the financial dealings of this foundation?" Travis's eyes flashed with something cold and cutting. Slowly, he leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "No," he said. His tone was steady, controlled. "What I'm saying is, I trusted the wrong people." Judge Gates's smile deepened, but there was no warmth in it. "And that," he said, "makes you responsible." Travis's gaze darkened. The tension in the room grew heavier, thicker. He could feel the pressure building, the weight of judgment bearing down on him. Judge Gates sat back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Welcome to the real world, Mr. Kelce." Travis's jaw tightened, his mind sharpened. He wasn't going to let this man tear him down. Not today. But deep down, he knew. The game was just beginning. The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the scratch of pens on notepads and the faint hum of the overhead lights. Travis's fingers curled around the edge of the table, his knuckles whitening. His chest rose and fell steadily beneath his fitted suit jacket, but inside, the pressure was mounting. Judge Gates's gaze sharpened, his thin mouth twisting into a calculated smirk. He adjusted his glasses, tapping his index finger against the stack of papers before him. "Let me get this straight, Mr. Kelce," he said, his tone edged with sarcasm. "You gave millions of dollars to a foundation without properly vetting the people managing it?" Travis's jaw tightened. He could feel the heat of the cameras pointed at him, the weight of the gallery's eyes pressing down on his back. Travis's attorney leaned toward him. "Don't engage," he whispered. "Let me handle this." But Travis shook his head. He wasn't going to sit back and let someone else take control. Not this time. "I trusted them," Travis said evenly. Judge Gates chuckled, a cold, dismissive sound. He leaned back slightly, his eyes gleaming beneath the courtroom lights. "That's the problem with celebrities," he said. "You think your name is enough. You think people will just do the right thing because you're famous." Travis's eyes darkened. His shoulders squared beneath the tailored jacket. He had been underestimated before, on the field, in the media, but this was different. This wasn't just about his reputation. Judge Gates's smile sharpened. "And now," he said, "innocent people have lost money because of your negligence. How do you justify that, Mr. Kelce?" Travis's chest tightened. He exhaled slowly through his nose. "Stay calm. Stay composed." "I'm not here to justify anything," Travis said. "I'm here to fix it." Judge Gates's smile faded. His gaze narrowed. "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" Travis leaned forward slightly, his eyes sharpened beneath the brim of his brow. "By taking responsibility." Judge Gates's eyes flashed. "Big words, Mr. Kelce." He lifted the stack of papers on his desk, flipping through them with deliberate slowness. "But that's not enough in this courtroom." Travis's fingers curled into his palm. His attorney leaned toward him again, his voice low. "Travis, don't push back. He's trying to bait you." But Travis's gaze remained locked on the judge. He could feel the tension in the room climbing. The reporters were perched at the edge of their seats. The gallery was quiet. Too quiet. Judge Gates adjusted his glasses, his eyes gleaming with cold satisfaction. "It's not enough to take responsibility after the fact, Mr. Kelce," he said. "You should have known better. Or are you going to sit there and tell me that you're so detached from reality that you didn't see this coming?" Travis's breath hitched. A low murmur rippled through the courtroom. His face remained calm, but beneath the surface, his pulse pounded. "I trusted them," Travis said, his voice low. Judge Gates scoffed. "Trust?" His mouth curled. "How naive can you be? That kind of thinking might work on the field, but not here." Travis's jaw twitched. His hand tightened around the edge of the table. Judge Gates stood, his long black robe billowing slightly as he straightened. "It's time you faced reality, Mr. Kelce," he said. "Fame doesn't give you immunity." Travis's gaze darkened. His mind sharpened. "I never asked for immunity," Travis said. The judge's lips curled. "Then maybe it's time you learned what accountability feels like." A ripple passed through the courtroom. Travis's pulse hammered in his ears. He could feel the heat of the cameras, the weight of the stares. His attorney's hand rested on his shoulder, steadying him, but Travis barely noticed. Judge Gates sat back down, his eyes gleaming with calculated pleasure. Let's see how that sense of responsibility holds up under real pressure. Travis's mouth tightened. His gaze didn't waver. The pressure was mounting. The tension was rising. The game had changed, and Travis was ready to play. "So, Mr. Kelce," Judge Gates said, his tone sharp and cutting, "tell me, if you're so committed to fixing this situation, where exactly is the money?" Travis's attorney stiffened beside him. "Your Honor, that question is irrelevant to the—" "It's highly relevant," Judge Gates snapped, cutting him off. "Unless you're telling me Mr. Kelce doesn't actually have an answer." Travis's mouth twitched. His grip on the table tightened. His gaze sharpened beneath the courtroom lights. Judge Gates sat back in his chair, his smirk deepening. "That's what I thought," he said. "Just another celebrity who thinks charm and good PR will cover up—" "Your Honor," Travis's attorney interrupted, his voice low but firm. "We have new evidence." Judge Gates's eyes narrowed. His smirk thinned. "New evidence?" Travis's attorney pulled a folder from his briefcase and handed it to the bailiff, who crossed the room with crisp steps and set it down in front of the judge. Judge Gates's eyes lingered on the folder before he opened it with slow, deliberate movements. The room fell into complete silence. Judge Gates's gaze darkened as he scanned the contents. His thin fingers twitched at the edges of the papers. His jaw visibly tightened. "What am I looking at?" he asked coldly. Travis's attorney stood. His voice was calm, controlled. "Bank records." Judge Gates's gaze lifted sharply. "Explain." Travis leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. His voice was steady. "The mismanaged funds, they weren't lost. They were moved." Judge Gates's eyes flashed. "Moved where?" Travis's attorney pulled another document from the folder. "Into an offshore account." Judge Gates's mouth thinned. "And?" Travis's gaze sharpened. His voice dropped, low and dangerous. "And the account is in your name." Gasps erupted from the gallery. Reporters sat up straighter, pens scratching furiously against their notepads. A woman seated near the back whispered, "Did he just say?" Judge Gates's face paled. His hands gripped the edges of his desk. "That's impossible." Travis's attorney's mouth curled slightly. "We traced the transfers. Over 18 months. Multiple deposits. All into an account linked directly to your personal holdings." Judge Gates's hands trembled. "This is absurd. Fabricated." Travis's gaze didn't waver. "It's not fabricated. The evidence is airtight." Judge Gates's mouth opened to argue, but Travis's attorney pulled another sheet from the folder and handed it to the bailiff. The bailiff approached the judge and set it down in front of him. Judge Gates's eyes scanned the paper. His face whitened. This... Travis's eyes hardened. His voice was low and cutting. "The foundation didn't mismanage those funds. You stole them." A collective gasp spread through the courtroom. One of the reporters in the front row dropped his pen. Judge Gates's face burned red. His lips parted, but no sound emerged. "This is ridiculous," the judge snapped. He shot to his feet, his black robe billowing behind him. "You think you can come into my courtroom and—" "Enough!" The voice didn't come from Travis or his attorney. It came from the back of the room. A man in a dark suit stepped forward, broad-shouldered, with a government badge clipped to his chest. His expression was cold and professional. "Judge Gates," the man said, "we need you to come with us." Judge Gates's mouth opened. "This is insane! I'm a sitting judge!" The man's expression didn't change. He stepped closer. "You're under arrest." Judge Gates's eyes widened. "For what?" "Financial fraud, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice." The room exploded into chaos. Reporters jumped to their feet, cameras flashing wildly. Judge Gates stepped back, his face burning with panic. "No, this is—" Two uniformed officers approached from the side of the room. One of them produced a pair of handcuffs. Judge Gates's mouth twisted. "You can't do this." "Actually," Travis's attorney said, "we can." The officers stepped forward. The click of the handcuffs echoed through the room. Judge Gates's eyes blazed as they pulled his arms behind his back. His gaze shot toward Travis. "This isn't over," Gates hissed. Travis's smile was calm. "Oh, it's over." Judge Gates's mouth twisted into a snarl as the officers led him toward the exit. Reporters followed closely, their cameras flashing. As the doors closed behind them, Travis leaned back in his chair, his hands steepled beneath his chin. His expression was calm, but his eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction. His attorney smiled. "Well played." Travis's smile deepened. Just another day at work. By the time Travis walked out of the courtroom, the news had already exploded. Reporters were swarming the courthouse steps, cameras flashing as Travis emerged through the heavy wooden doors. His attorney walked beside him, looking composed, but the media frenzy was already spiraling out of control. "Travis! Travis! Over here!" "Mr. Kelce, did you know about the fraud?" "Travis, how does it feel to expose a sitting judge?" Travis didn't answer. His broad shoulders cut through the crowd as security flanked him on both sides. The sound of shutters clicking and voices shouting mixed with the hum of the city behind them. Just as Travis reached the sidewalk, his phone buzzed in his jacket pocket. He pulled it out. The screen was flooded with notifications. Kelce Exposes Judge was already trending worldwide. Headlines were everywhere. Travis Kelce takes down corrupt judge. Justice served in shocking courtroom twist. NFL star Travis Kelce exposes financial scandal. Judge arrested in front of packed courtroom. Kelce's cool response under pressure makes him a national hero. Travis slid his phone back into his pocket, his jaw tightening. He didn't care about the media attention. This had never been about headlines. It was about doing the right thing. But the fallout was already gaining momentum. Social media was on fire. Memes were circulating within minutes. A clip of Travis calmly saying, "The account is in your name." The caption read, "Mic drop." A gif of Judge Gates being handcuffed with the caption, "When you mess with Travis Kelce, you get what's coming." A picture of Travis walking out of the courthouse, captioned, "Cool under pressure. Kelce doesn't just win on the field." Twitter was blowing up. Kelce handled that with class. Dude stayed calm while exposing a sitting judge. Legend. NFL star Travis Kelce just schooled a judge. Absolute boss move. Kelce's comeback, any touchdown he's ever scored. Even major sports networks were covering it. Travis Kelce didn't just win in court, he dominated. ESPN's headline read, "Kelce's coolness in court. The greatest play of his career?" Travis scrolled through the notifications, his face calm. But beneath the surface, the weight of it all was settling in. He had exposed corruption on a national stage. And the fallout wasn't over yet. The district attorney's office confirmed an official investigation into Judge Gates's financial dealings. Multiple offshore accounts were being examined, and several other high-profile cases Judge Gates had ruled on were being re-evaluated. A news anchor's voice played from the television in the background of Travis's hotel room that evening. In a shocking turn of events, Judge Howard Gates has been removed from the bench pending further investigation into alleged financial misconduct. Sources confirm that additional charges may be forthcoming as more evidence surfaces. Travis sat on the edge of the bed, his hands resting loosely between his knees. His phone buzzed again. A text from his brother, Jason. Jason. Bro, you just took down a judge. Travis. Yeah. Jason. Kinda more impressive than a Super Bowl win. Travis. Debatable. A notification popped up. Travis Kelce addresses courtroom fallout in post-game style press conference, live at 8 p.m. Travis exhaled. He wasn't looking forward to that, but he knew it was part of the job now. His name wasn't just linked to the NFL anymore. He had stepped into a bigger arena. But what really mattered to Travis wasn't the media storm. It was the fact that people who had lost money, innocent people, would finally get justice. The foundation could be rebuilt. Lives could be repaired. He had done the right thing. And if there was one thing Travis Kelce knew how to handle, it was pressure. The camera lights in the press conference room were already warming up as Travis walked in. Reporters were seated, cameras pointed toward the empty podium. Travis adjusted the sleeves of his jacket, squared his shoulders, and stepped up to the mic. "Good evening," he said. His voice was calm, steady. "I'm not going to answer every question about the case because the investigation is ongoing. But I will say this. When you see something wrong, you stand up. You don't back down. And you don't let fear stop you from doing the right thing." One reporter raised her hand. "Travis, how did you stay so composed under pressure?" Travis smiled faintly. "Pressure is part of the game." Another reporter jumped in. "Were you ever worried the evidence wouldn't hold up?" Travis's gaze sharpened. "No." "Why not?" Travis's mouth curled at the edges. "Because I don't play unless I know I'm going to win." 2 days after the court hearing, Travis sat alone in his Kansas City home, the early evening light filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Outside, the quiet hum of the city drifted up from the street below. His phone buzzed on the marble coffee table beside him. Another headline alert. Judge Howard Gates faces additional fraud charges. Investigation expands after Kelce's testimony. Travis leaned back against the leather couch, rubbing his hand over his jaw. The weight of the last few days was finally catching up to him. He had faced pressure before, Super Bowl moments where the game was on the line. But this was different. The stakes had been higher. Real lives had been affected. And now, people were looking at him not just as an athlete, but as something more. His brother Jason's name flashed on the screen. Travis smiled faintly and picked up the call. "Yo. Bro, are you watching the news?" Jason's voice crackled through the line. "You're all over it." "Yeah," Travis said, running a hand through his hair. "Figured that'd happen." Jason chuckled. "Man, you took down a judge." Travis exhaled. "Yeah, guess I did." Jason's voice softened. "Proud of you, man. That was bigger than football." Travis's chest tightened. He smiled faintly. "Thanks, Jay." He hung up and scrolled through social media. The headlines were everywhere. Travis Kelce, not just a champion on the field. Kelce's courtroom moment breaks the internet. NFL star exposes corruption. Justice served. But the one that hit him the hardest was a post from a woman named Carla Mitchell, one of the victims whose money had been lost in the foundation scandal. My family lost everything when that foundation collapsed. I didn't think we'd ever get justice. Thank you, Travis Kelce, for not backing down. Travis's throat tightened. His eyes lingered on the post for a moment before he put his phone down. The next day, Travis was invited to speak at a local youth center. He showed up wearing jeans and a fitted hoodie, his usual laid-back style. The kids swarmed him as he walked in, some holding footballs, others wearing his jersey. A young boy stepped forward, maybe 8 or 9 years old, clutching a football in his small hands. His face was serious as he looked up at Travis. "Mr. Kelce?" the boy asked. Travis crouched down so they were eye level. "Yeah, buddy." The boy's brow furrowed. "Weren't you scared?" Travis's smile softened. "Scared of what?" "Of saying the truth. Of making people mad." Travis's gaze steadied. He reached out and rested a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Yeah, I was scared." The boy's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yeah," Travis said. "But you do the right thing anyway." The boy's face lit up. "Like you did?" Travis smiled. "Exactly." Later that night, Travis sat down for an exclusive interview. The bright lights of the studio reflected off the glass table in front of him. The reporter leaned forward, her pen poised over her notepad. "So, Travis," she began, "how did you stay so calm under that kind of pressure?" Travis chuckled softly. "Pressure's part of the game." "But this wasn't football," the reporter pressed. "This was your reputation on the line." Travis's smile faded slightly. His gaze sharpened. "Yeah," he said quietly, "but some things are bigger than reputation. This was about doing what's right." "And Judge Gates?" the reporter asked. "Do you think he got what he deserved?" Travis's jaw tightened. "I think justice was served." "Do you think this changes how people see you?" Travis leaned back slightly, his smile faint. "Maybe." "And how do you feel about that?" Travis's gaze softened. "Doesn't really matter how people see me." He looked straight at the camera. "It matters how you show up when it counts." The reporter smiled. "One last question. What's next for Travis Kelce?" Travis's smile widened. "Football season starts in 3 weeks." "And off the field?" Travis's eyes glinted. "Let's just say, I'm not done yet." What do you think? Did Travis handle this like a pro or what? Should the judge face even more punishment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like and share if you think Travis showed real class. Subscribe for more incredible stories.